Hello everyone, it's Gusen. I'm really happy to announce third version of EHTML. For those of you who don't know, it's a web framework for front-end development, and it puts HTML as a primary language where you write all your logic and you do all your templating. It's quite different from server-side rendering, and it's definitely quite different from client-side rendering. It's even different from HTMX and Turbo and similar frameworks in many aspects. And hopefully I will be able to demonstrate that in this video. And actually, this version of HTML, I would like to promote it as a framework for solo developers or indie hackers. Simply because for the last 5 or 6 months, I've been developing fairly complex web systems for music schools. And it allowed me to confirm capabilities of HTML, and also it allowed me to improve the framework. And I've been working alone as a solo developer on this project. And yeah, I would like to also shout out Instruct's music team that allowed me to do that wonderful thing. And I'm really happy that I could manage to do that in a really short period of time. We could release our first beta version like in 3 months, basically. So yeah, it's truly amazing. And during that time, I added so many powerful features like nested forms, or for example, I made HTML 100% compatible with custom elements or custom web components. And I would also mention that HTML version 3, like version 2, follows no build concept, where you don't really need to build your front-end code. You don't need to bundle it. You don't need to minimize it and or even transpile it to anything. You can actually observe your code in developer console, as in your favorite text editor. You can have the same project structure. You can see individual files. And it's just much easier to debug, it's much easier to update your code, and I believe it's just more fun. Yeah, I mean, just the ability around your dynamic language like JavaScript, I think just changes your view on how the development process can be done. Yeah, for me, it's been really, really fun to do like programming and developing just without this build process. But I don't think it's only developer experience that improves. I honestly believe that even user experience gets much better because you literally can cache all your files, and you can update the cache only for those files that you actually modify. It's quite opposite to what we see in a traditional client-side rendering, where you just update one line code in your system, and the whole bundle must be updated, right? The whole cache, it's kind of out of date. So yeah, and in general, just HTML takes great advantage of caching. And yeah, hopefully I'm gonna just demonstrate it to you. So this is the application I've been working on for the last several months. And actually it's a multi-page application, but let me just show you one thing. Let's just click on several links here. So for example, if I'm gonna go to the dashboard, then I'm gonna go to the students page, then I go back to the calendar. I can also go to some other pages like organization management, and let's just go back to the calendar. You might notice really that this header didn't really move anywhere. It didn't flick, it stayed still. And it seemed like it didn't really re-upload it. But I assure you, this is a multi-page application. So the way I achieved this, actually, I literally cached this whole header. I mean, with this menu and everything that goes there. So that's the trick. So yeah, I mean, it's just amazing how it can be easily achieved. So, and yeah, hopefully I'll be able to explain how it works under the hood. But not only it works just for HTML, it also works for data from the server. For example, this custom built-in from scratch, by the way, calendar element where we can select any week. So let's say I'm just gonna select this last week of the month, and here we go. we just see that we have events that come from the server, and if we go back to the current week, it just uploads immediately. So as you can see, it also just works really well with data caching. For example, we can go to the next week. We can see that there is a little delay because it actually loads the data. But if we go back and if we go again forward, it's just, you know, immediate switch. It's because the data is cached. Although I don't really have that many events here, you can still feel the power of cache. So yeah, I mean, it's a fairly complex system. We also have like video lesson room. I'm not gonna show it because it's kind of tricky to demo this thing in a recording. Okay, so yeah, that's the application. So I'm gonna show you documentation first, and then we're gonna build very simple blog app as a tradition, and see how it can be implemented in newest version of EHTML. All right, so this is documentation of EHTML. As you see, I updated the design. I updated so many details in the documentation. I made it much lighter and at the same time more informative. And also added a contents section just for better navigating. Yeah, overall a lot of improvements here. And the main idea, of course, of EHTML is that it's a framework that it's built on simple idea that the browser is already the framework. And I truly believe that the framework should be really simple and flexible so that you can be as close as possible to the native implementation of the platform. In this case, it's a browser. And yeah, I mean, that was the main goal actually of HTML version 3, where we just try to make it as close as possible to web standards. And that goes with supported elements, of course, where some of the elements have been renamed. For example, form, previously it's called eForm, right now it's just form that with attribute is, and the value is here eForm. It means that we just extend native form element. For example, select also been renamed, and other elements. Most of the elements are actually templates. There is a good reason, because templates work in a way that they don't really get rendered immediately, and it gives us kind of like lazy loading on one hand, and on the other hand, of course, it gives us opportunity to interact with Ajax to load something from the server and only then react on the response. So yeah, of course, I'm gonna show you how it works. Just you have better understanding of this framework. All right, so yeah, there is some details on different things in the framework, some little details. There are some provided actions on Ajax response. Yeah, I will explain some of them. And of course, one of the newest things in HTML3 is custom elements and customized built-ins included. So in HTML3, we also included a polyfill that allows you to build extensions of native elements, because, you know, in some of browsers it doesn't really work. For example, in mobile browser, in Safari, this feature is not available yet, and I'm not really sure when it's going to be available. But it's totally web standard. It's in the specification, so this is something that works out of the box in this framework. So in this particular example, we just try to extend the HTML button element, and we call it like my counter. And here we just we just take in our internal state, we attach event listener, which is called HTML activated, which basically guarantees that all the attributes being processed by HTML, and this element in general has been processed by the framework. And we need to attach it only once, because HTML has a principle of just activating each element only once. This is quite different from, let's say, React or other frameworks where, whenever state changes, we change the whole thing or partially change something. So it doesn't really suit HTML philosophy. Here we just attach our on-click event, and from there, of course, we can just re-render how many times we want, Yeah, so we just attach it once. Of course, you can change this behavior, but this is something like kind of recommended, because HTML will not activate anyways the same element twice. So it's good to clean up the memory afterwards, right? So yeah, and here how we just define our element. Nothing different from just traditional web components that works natively in a specification. This is actually, I think, a big advantage compared to other libraries that based on web components, where you still have some kind of like custom way of declaring or defining elements. So this is how you declare your element in HTML. And one of the newest features in HTML actually is data internal state, because previously we could, for example, template only like text, some maybe custom attributes, or let's say we could map values in input fields and other similar elements. But here actually we can map data internal state, and we can hard code this object. We can get that object from local storage, session storage, from memory, from mappings, from, I don't know, Ajax response. It's really flexible, and from the inside of the custom element, we can just have an access to that internal state. So yeah, I think it's super powerful feature, and it just adds even more flexibility to the framework. So yeah, I mean, there are so many things I would love to discuss, but I will put the link to the documentation in the description of this video, so you can just take a closer look, and maybe you can play with it. It's really, I'm really proud of the progress I've made so far in this library, and my goal is just to keep it as simple as possible. If you need some new custom elements, I mean, you can easily create them anyways. And so hopefully I'll be able to just explain while we will be building the blog app how it works. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so this is the app we're gonna build. It's a very simple app. As you can see, we have like a landing page with just a header. We have a head element here. We have like footer here. We have like links in navigation. So let me just go through them. We click here, we click back, and still, as you might notice, I mean, header doesn't change, right? I mean, we only change the dynamic content in the main section. But other than that, I mean, it just doesn't seem that it's a multi-page application. Of course, you can see like reloading thing in a tab, but other than that, I mean, you barely notice that this is not a single-page application, which is great. And let me just show you how it's done. First of all, let's just go ahead and build this page. Just to demonstrate how it works. So as you can see, we have just 5 HTML files, basically, that are responsible for the whole page, and that's it really. Of course, we have like HTML library that we need to copy into the JS folder. For example, if you serve your files in that way, I think it's quite common and traditional way to serve by the format of files. So for example, we have CSS, we have fonts, we have HTML, we have images, and of course we have JavaScript files. And here we just copy our HTML library here. And then we use import maps, as you can see. in order to include this library. But let me just go to the index page first, just to show you from scratch how it works. And you might think that it's not something many people used to or use in general, because many people use like package managers like npm, but I don't know. I feel like it gives so much advantage just to copy the code. Of course, it's kind of tricky with third-party libraries, but what I do in practice, I just copy the stable versions of those libraries, and whenever I need to update something, I just know what exactly and why I'm doing certain updates. I'm not just doing code updates for the sake of just updating the libraries, till the end of my days, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. It's quite unusual. Of course, I'm not going to deny that fact. But honestly, it just gives so much freedom and so much efficiency that I'm okay with that, and I don't really need to use npm for frontend, really. So I'm just gonna copy those libraries that I need. Maybe I just need some custom elements that I also can easily copy, and yeah, that's that. In general, I think like frontend should be as simple as possible. But if you have other opinion or you have different view on that, that's all right. But I'm just saying from the perspective of a solid developer, right, who wants to build things really fast, who don't really have that many hours in a day, or in general, the schedule is really tight, the budget is really tight. So yeah, I think if it's your case, you definitely should check it out. All right, so we got our index page. I'm just gonna include here my CSS file just to make everything beautiful. Some like favicon, some made information, all that stuff. So yeah. And then I'm gonna, of course, use import map just to upload or import my HTML framework. Here I just declare this thing. It allows me to recursively go deeper and deeper and map every file related to this prefix. And just to be more consistent with what we have inside of the framework, we're just gonna map in a similar way main file. And then we're just gonna import that HTML/main just to be able to activate the HTML. So what's going on under hood there? We actually create a mutation observer which scans the whole page and activates every element. So you might think that it gives a bit of performance overhead because we kind of like scan the whole document. But in reality, it doesn't really do that because HTML forces you to use templates, and templates allow kind of like lazy rendering, so to speak. And we don't really kind of like scan that many elements. I mean, of course, there are some kind of different types of applications, and HTML allows you to put some attributes to some elements to avoid scanning by the framework, or for example, you can also turn it off the mutation observer whenever you want. It's all available, but in general, it's rarely needed because I mean, mutation observer is surprisingly fast, especially in V8 engine. So yeah, so far it worked really well for me, and maybe because I tend to build very simple applications. I mean, by simple I mean, of course, that they have fewer elements, and I'm just trying to optimize everything as much as I can. But overall, even if you have tons of elements, I mean, it still works pretty well, I would say. So let's just build our page. In the body, we can see that we declared our first template, And this template is a custom template, which is called EHTML. And EHTML allows you to wrap dynamic content, which basically will be declared inside of this template. And it allows you to wrap it with the static content, which you declare in data src. So it makes additional HTTP requests that gets static content. Let's just see how it looks like. So our template basically consists of a header, where we have like our title, we have navigation bar, the main section, and it also has a footer. And as you can see, this is actually what's going on here. We have a footer, we have a header, and we got the main section. And what's interesting about that is that you can actually cache this static template. And it just makes the request only the first time when a user loads this file. And then after that, it just gets from the disk. So yeah, it's really efficient, as you could see. And whenever we change the template, of course, we can like add a query parameter that updates the cache. So yeah. All right, so once we declared where we're gonna get our template, then we just need to explain how exactly we're gonna place our dynamic content inside of that template. And in this case, we're just gonna place all the dynamic content to the main section, which is declared right here, right? And another attribute which is called data how to place. This attribute tells us how exactly we're gonna place that dynamic content. So in this case, it's instead. So we're gonna replace all our dynamic content inside of this template instead of main section in that static template. So instead of this. And yeah, that's that. I mean, there are some other ways how you can do this. You can append into the, or insert inside of the main section. You can also like append inside the main section or prepend. Yes, there are many other ways. So yeah, let's just declare our main section in this dynamic content. And yeah, all we need to do is just to declare welcome to simple blog app, which is basically this text. So we just so this is our dynamic content that's wrapped with this all static content, and it's actually cached, right? So this is why when I click on these links, it feels like a single page application, because the static content around our dynamic content is literally cached. All right, so we built this simple page. Now let's go and create this form. So just quickly show you what we have here. Let's just click post, and we can see that it has built-in validation, which is really useful and easy to implement, as you will see. And whenever I focus on the input fields, the validation errors disappear, which is really nice to have. And also we have like error message for the whole form. And one thing, of course, is that, for example, if I click post again, we can have required input fields. But if, let's say, I'm gonna type something that doesn't really match, in this case, email, and I'm gonna press again post, it will show a different message. So we can really control two different type of messages. One is for absent field, where it's empty, but it's required, and another message which kind of like shows up when the format of the input field doesn't match our expectations for the field. So yeah. All right, so that's that. Yeah, let's build this form. So this is where we're gonna build our form. As you can see, we have the same things. We import our EHTML library. We have the same CSS file. We even have some custom CSS for this particular page. And of course, we import the HTML main file. And yeah, let's just build our form here. So again, we have our if wrapper, because again, we need our static content. We do the same thing, we just place instead of main section. And here we declare our own main section, We have like a header, which is this thing. We have our form, which is extended, and it's called eForm. And we can declare error messages. We can declare error message if a form eventually is not valid. Basically, if even one input field is not valid, we just show this message. And we, of course, can control CSS class for this message, so that, you know, for the form itself. So whenever it is invalid, it just changes its styling. And here we got the labels with input fields. In input fields, we just declare the same things as you would do in native HTML, like the type, the name. And the name, of course, is used as a key in a request body. So this is actually, this is actually the main difference between eForm and just a regular form, is that eForm sends the request payload in JSON format, which is the main idea of this custom element. And overall, EHTML has a huge accent on JSON format, simply because it's the easiest way to use it for templating, right? So, whereas like HTML is a view, and JSON is just representation of the data, and you can easily map one thing to another. So very simple, but yet works pretty well in majority of cases. So we just also define validation pattern. In this case, it's predefined keyword email. There are some other predefined things like URL, for example, but of course you can just put here regex if you want to. But I'm also thinking maybe in the future releases or versions, there would be nice to have like JavaScript function here as well, where it does some more sophisticated validation. Anyways, so there are some validation error messages for the case where the value is absent, and for the case where it doesn't match the validation pattern. And also we got the error classes, basically CSS error classes for our input field and the message box that basically wraps our input field. In this case, it's just a label. So okay, so let's just go and add some other input fields like date and title. We can also just declare required attribute, which basically works as in native HTML. So again, we just try to be as close as possible to native HTML. We just try to extend it basically, and just do little tweaks here and there just to make the whole experience much smoother, and just to eliminate repetitive work that we do in JavaScript. And the same goes for the content of the post, which is basically text area with the name content. And let's go and build our button, which basically triggers the form and submits it. And one thing I would like to mention, of course, is that eForm can have multiple triggers. This is quite opposite to what we have like in a regular form. So it's really fits the too many cases where CRUD is needed, for example, where we need to delete something, to update something, or just to add something. It's kind of like nice to have multiple triggers for the same form. So in this case, we just need to declare request URL. It's a bit different from what we have in native HTML form, where we put the action attribute, I believe, in the form itself. Here we just put the request URL in the button itself, simply because I believe it makes more sense. Different triggers can have their own request URLs. And we got the request method, of course, we need to declare that. And in newest version of HTML, we can easily declare request headers. Of course, it was possible before, but it was kind of tricky with different types of parentheses and yeah, but here it's just super simple. You can hard code your JSON object as a header. You can also get it from different type of mappings that I'm gonna discuss, or from memory, from AJAX request, I don't know, from anywhere in application, from local storage, session storage, stuff like that. So yeah, we can also actually have that AJAX icon. We can also refer to it just by CSS selector, basically. And we can have our trigger event. In this case, it's onClick. We can use anything. And onClick, in onClick, we just submit this form with this trigger. So yeah. And then one of the most interesting parts, we declare our response name. So the response name is just a variable that we can use in another attribute, data actions on response. And this response actually consists of three things. It's a response headers, response body, of course, and status code. Basically, those three things that we need to handle. And in this particular case, we just declare in data actions on response redirect function that's provided by EHTML, one of those actions on response. You can, of course, basically you can of course basically call here any JavaScript function that's available to you. And in this particular case, we just redirect to our particular post with ID that's coming from our response. Again, we just take our ID from our body, from the response. And of course, it's kind of naive implementation because in production code, you most likely need to handle different status codes, like for example, what's going to happen if the status code is 400, or let's say the status code is even 500, or let's say it's 401 if the user is not authorized to do such request. Yeah, I mean, but just for simplicity, we just redirect to our post. So yeah, it's a very simple app. All right, so here we go, and just to demonstrate how it works, let's just create one more post. We're just gonna select everything here. Okay, and let's just click post. And as you can see, we redirected to the post with ID 7. Here we have our title, email, date. We have our content that we actually submitted. And of course, there is a comment section where basically we can, we can leave comments. So let's say I'm just gonna mention my email, and let's say I'm gonna type a comment. By the way, you can see that there is no comments yet before the comment, so this is kind of like the state that's included here. So basically this page understands that there are no comments. This is why it shows this. But if I'm gonna just press this button, that message disappears and we see our first comment. And if I'm gonna just show you a second comment, it just appears below. So yeah, it works quite nicely. Okay, so yeah, let's just see how I built this page. For that, we just go to the post HTML. Actually, one thing what I really like about this is we just can see in our URL bar the same file that we can see in our code, basically on our server. And I don't know, it's just something about this is truly amazing for me because it's super simple. You don't really need to think about anything like how your templating engine works, or you don't really have any server-side template engine here. It just works really naturally. You just serve your static files and they do their job. So yeah, I don't know, it's quite nice. So yeah, I mean, here we just import our library. We add some custom CSS files for this particular page. And here we just declare our first template, which is, by the way, is called ePage with URL. So what it does actually, it allows you to initialize variables or rather reference to URL parameters in your URL bar. For this particular case, it's just ID. And in order to achieve this, we declare our data URL pattern, which basically corresponds to our page, and we can declare our URL parameter that we expect for this page. And this template probably should be declared as close as possible to the body, simply because anything inside of this template can be referenced kind of like by URL parameters, as you will see. I don't know, it's just the idea that we can actually declare the URL that's expected for this particular file. I believe it's really cool. It's not really needed for every page, of course, only for those where we actually have a logic that kind of like works with URL parameters. And again, we declare our if wrapper because still we have to have like static content, or rather static skeleton around our dynamic content. And here we have our main section where we declare eJSON element. So eJSON basically is the main force of everything in HTML, I would say. Actually, this is element that inspired me in the first place to create this library. I just wanted really just to fetch JSON from the server and just map it to the HTML without any like JavaScript, basically. So yeah, that's simple as that. And this in this particular eJSON, we need to declare data src. And yeah, just one important thing I might mention is all the custom elements by specification in HTML must start with data prefix. I don't know, it's just, I think, important to mention just to to be on one page, and don't think that I made this up, but actually this is true. You should start all your custom attributes with data prefix. This is why actually one of the indicators that we truly try to be compatible with web standards. So in this particular case, we just try to call our endpoint, and in this endpoint we call ID query parameter, which we actually get from our URL parameters. So all the mentions or references that we declare in data URL pattern, we can access in the URL params variable inside of that template. Yeah, simple as that. And of course, we can just declare our Ajax icon. We can declare the element itself here. It appears and disappears depending on whether the request is in progress or is just finished. So yeah. And then, of course, as in eForm, we declare our response name. In this case, it's a post response, which we can reference to in our data actions on response. And here, one of the, I would say, most commonly used predefined methods that provided by EHTML, it's called map to template. And map to template basically maps any object to any template which we can either reference to as a CSS selector, but we can also just put a reference to the element itself here. So yeah, and then by this CSS selector, we just create a template, which is as we can see with ID post template. And here we must also declare our data object name, to which we can reference inside of this template. And you might think, well, why do we do this double job? Why do we declare this post response here and we do the same here, but with just different attribute name? So this is basically the main kind of like philosophy of HTML, is that all the templates can be mapped with any objects, and it doesn't really matter how exactly and kind of like what's the trigger of that mapping. So here, for example, we just map the template from eJSON object eJSON element on response, right? But basically, this template can be met in many different ways, and actually can be mapped in the same application by different triggers. So this is why we just declare this thing separately. Just to give you an example, we can map this template just by mapping from JavaScript code somewhere, or we can just map by event listener on some button. We can do whatever we want, and we map any object. We can map objects from the memory, we can map objects from local storage, session storage, like IndexedDB, not only from kind of like AJAX request, right, or rather AJAX response. So yeah, we can do whatever we want, but in order to have that flexibility, of course, you need to declare this attribute separately. And it's not even necessary to keep this template inside of this eJSON element. You can declare it somewhere else, but for me, it's kind of like makes sense to keep it in the scope of the element that actually triggers that template. So yeah. So inside of this template, we have another template, which is called if. It's a kind of like conditional template, and it displays the content that is inside of it if this attribute value results to true. So we declare that a condition to display, where we can, for this particular case, we state that if status code from our post response is 404, we just show that post not found. So actually, let's just test this thing. Let's just add 10. And yeah, as you can see, this post not found. And if we go back, here we go. And actually, this is one of those things that I really like about multi-page application, is that we can go back and forth in the browser, and this thing is just natively accessible to us. And HTML doesn't really kind of like fight this thing. It works really well with that. And this is one of those things, again, like the main motto, so to speak, of HTML is that browser is already our framework. So yeah. All right, so we handled this case. Let's go handle another case where, again, we declare our if template with another condition, which basically corresponds to the status code where it's equal to 200. Here we just declare our basically layout where we map our properties from our response body. As column, just don't really pay attention to that. It's custom element from my CSS library, where it just allows me to declare flexible columns in a simple way. But of course, you can use whatever you would like to in HTML. So here we just map different properties, for example, like title from our post response body, like user, email, date, and content. So yeah. All right, so now let's go and build our comments section. Again, we have here template, conditional template if, where we have two cases. First one, of course, when we don't really have any comments yet for the particular post, and we just display that there are no comments. And another conditional template where actually we have posts, and we have another template which is called if for each. And if this template was conditional, like if for each, of course, is a template that re-renders the same thing inside of it, right, multiple times. And here we iterate over comments from our response body. Of course, we should mention our data item name, which is comment in this case. And here we just, we map our comment details in a layout. And then we have another template, which is called reusable. Basically, this template activates whenever we post a new comment. So basically, if we map just if we map on simple template without any attribute reusable, after it's mapped and activated, it just disappears from DOM. We literally remove it from DOM just to keep it clean and just don't confuse developers, right? But here, actually, we want this template stay in the DOM and be remapped as many times as needed. So once we mapped this template, we will want it to be stayed in the DOM and whenever we just post a new comment, it just maps itself again, and we can actually put that content inside of this template wherever we want, basically. So in this particular case, we just we declare our ID for this particular template. We actually, of course, declare the object name, and basically we kind of do the same thing as we do here. The main difference is like here we just upload existing comments, and here we update comments once we add them. So yeah. All right. So and then we just declare a form for adding comments, right? We just add validations. We add our input fields with their own validations. All right, and of course we get our trigger. Here we just call our comment/new endpoint with, by the way, with the post ID that we get from our previous post response. That's the kind of like a beauty that EHTML kind of like allows us to reference to the variables depending on their scope. So for example, in for each, right, we can actually for each element we can have their own kind of like JSON custom object, and we will do the request over and over again. And in each JSON we can still reference to the comment, even though it's a kind of like separate process, right? But still, we have the ability to reference in the scope, kind of like of this element. But if, for example, we declare eJSON outside of this for-each template, we already don't really have the access to the comment variable. But we have access to post response, for example. So yeah. Anyways, so here we just declare our request headers. We declare Ajax icon. Again, we declare our response name, to which we're gonna reference in our data actions and response attribute. Here, actually, we also can declare that the button Ajax text. This text will appear in the button itself when request is in progress. And of course, we just declare on-click where we submit our form. So yeah, in data actions and response, we just map our object. In this case, it's just response body to the comment template, which is basically, let me see. Yeah, this is a reusable template. It's also one of those things where it's really maintainable, because you can always, if you see like any template with ID, like this one, you can actually just search in the code which part of the code in HTML or JavaScript actually uses or maps this template, so you can have much better understanding of kind of like of the flow and logic in your program. So I think it's kind of nice. And after we mapped our template, we just change values of input fields so that it will be much easier to add new comments. And then we just hide no comments message. So yeah. All right, so yeah, that's that. And then let me go and see what's left. Basically, yeah, all we need to do is just build this page, which, by the way, had pagination. We can go to the next page, we can go to the previous page, and everything is kind of like, it's based on URL parameters, as we'll see. And of course, for example, we can go to a particular post, we can click here, and yeah, it works really well. All right, so let's just build this last page. And here, again, we just have our page with URL, where we have like page and size for the pagination. And then we got our, of course, static template. And inside of it, we just declare our dynamic content. Again, eJSON, where we fetch all our posts with different things like Ajax icon. Again, we just declare our response name. And we map our post response, or rather posts response to posts template. and of course we declare headers, and then we just declare our post template. We have different conditions. One of them is that no posts been published. Another one is where we actually iterate all our posts. And then, for each template, we just iterate over our posts from response body. And then we just map it. We also have like other conditional templates where we show the links to the next page, to the previous page, depending on what our server returns, right? So for example, if server returns that this is the last page, then we don't really show next page. Otherwise, we just show it. So yeah. I mean, yeah, actually, this is it really. There's just 4 active dynamic pages with like one static page, which is basically cached. And yeah, we can just build this simple blog app. So yeah, thank you for watching. Really appreciate that. I'm really proud and happy with the progress I made in this library, and also just I'm super happy that I could use it in a real commercial project. So yeah, more information you can find on the webpage for this framework. And yeah, hopefully I will be making even more videos on this framework, and maybe we'll try to write some tutorials and just making some content just to grow a community, because I truly believe that this framework can be really useful for certain type of developers, especially I believe solid developers or indie hackers who really just want to get the job done, honestly. And yeah, we'll see how it goes, Anyways, yeah, thank you, and till next time. Cheers.